All right, Kyle, your time to shine. You got questions. Joel's got some answers for you. Ask away.
All right, Joel. I always had issues with when we come to the off season. I shut my football brain off. I head to the mountains. I'm swimming in the lake, and I'm not thinking about ball at all. But as you know, that's when the agents are pounding pavement. That's when the conversations are having between the cap guy, the general manager, and the agents, and they're speaking on behalf of these players. One thing that always comes up is the salary cap. And I'm just curious, does a salary cap exist in every major sport, or are we the only one in the NFL that has to deal with this beast every single year? Obviously, it goes up every year, but I'm curious as to, you hear the NBA contracts, they're fully guaranteed. The baseball contracts, they're guaranteed. We always bitch that we don't get our contracts guaranteed. So why does it exist in football, the non-guaranteed contracts, and not in other sports? And how does the salary cap play into that, Joel?
Well, first, you can blame the salary cap on the NBA. That was the first league to have a salary cap in the mid-'80s, and that was to ensure financial stability for a league which was on shaky ground at that time. That was right before Magic Johnson and Larry Bird really helped spur the growth of the NBA. Now, the reason they have fully guaranteed contracts isn't because it's mandated in the collective bargaining agreement. That's because individual players exploited their leverage and got them. Baseball doesn't have a salary cap. They've got a competitive balance tax, which is basically like a luxury tax, but they also don't have a salary floor, which you have with salary caps. So you have a huge disparity in spending where the Dodgers are basically, it's like they're printing money. Then you have other teams in baseball, a couple of those Florida teams, which don't spend any money at all, and they're not really competitive. Now, what you really need is for a quarterback to fully exploit his leverage and then have other quarterbacks follow up right behind him. In 2018, Kirk Cousins got the fully guaranteed contract after playing on 2 franchise tags. But the next 2 guys didn't. Atlanta held the line of Matt Ryan. He did a conventional deal. And then Aaron Rodgers was the next guy to get a contract. He did a conventional deal. You had Deshaun Watson miraculously get a fully guaranteed contract because he had 4 years left on the deal he signed with the Texans. But nobody was able to capitalize on that. Kyler Murray was never going to get one because he was the next guy to sign because of how cash poor the Cardinals are. But Russell Wilson, to me, I thought could have. They gave up an arm and a leg to get him. New ownership group. It's Walton money, Walmart money. Mm-hmm. So they could have done it. He didn't get it. Lamar Jackson was fighting the good fight. He didn't sign in his 5th-year option. He played on his 5th-year option because he wanted a fully guaranteed contract, and that was an owner who was very outspoken after Deshaun Watson got the fully guaranteed contract. Once Jalen Hurts signed a conventional deal, Lamar Jackson, after he was franchised, did do a conventional deal after that. Now, because of Deshaun Watson, you won't see a fully guaranteed contract anytime soon because he has not been the guy that was with the Texans, and that may go down as the worst contract trade in NFL history. So the only way I think you get one is you got to have somebody do like Cousins, play through 2 franchise tags, and be an above average quarterback or better. And then on the open market, you could get one. I did an article earlier this week on CBS for you guys, which was what if Lamar Jackson had played out 2 franchise tags? I consulted a couple of team execs just to get their opinion on what might have happened in this hypothetical situation. The consensus was he's over $70 million per year if he's a free agent this year, and he gets a fully guaranteed contract. So that's how you would get one most likely.
Okay, so you mentioned a litany of quarterbacks there and situations contractually, and I've got questions about a few, but one that stood out to me, I was on the toilet a couple nights ago and I was scrolling through TikTok, and my TikTok algorithm is a lot of football stuff, and recently it's been a lot of contract talk stuff and the dollars and cents of the game, which is foreign to me. Like you said, it's Greek to me, but they were talking about the Jalen Hurts deal and how unique it is, the way they've set it up. They've backloaded it, essentially. They've extended it. And when I was a kid, it was hearing about Bobby Bonilla Day in the MLB.
That still exists.
Bobby Bonilla would make $1 million every year on October 7th or whatever the hell it was. Now, I know this Jalen Hurts deal isn't the Bobby Bonilla deal, but can you break down why Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles figured out a way to get Jalen Hurts on the deal that he is currently on? Now, triple option bonus structure, that's a buzzword, a couple buzzwords in there, but maybe you can explain it to me and the other simpletons that are listening in.
Okay, first, there are different structures for contracts. One is just a pure signing bonus, and then you just have salary guarantees if they're warranted. And then there's a signing bonus, option bonus structure. Some teams like the Ravens have been doing that for a long time. Back in 2013, Joe Flacco had 2 option bonuses, which was highly unusual. And how an option bonus works is you have a base salary, which is at a certain level, and then there's an option to pick up a future contract year. And there's a huge bonus associated with picking up that contract year, which is going to reduce the base salary down to a usually league minimum. The option bonus is prorated like signing bonus. You can prorate it for a maximum of 5 years, life of the contract for a maximum of 5 years. What Philadelphia is doing is taking it to a new extreme. With these multiple option bonuses, they're picking up voiding dummy years, which down the road you could convert in a negotiation into real years. That keeps the cap numbers low initially, but eventually they start spiking. They did run into a problem just doing a single option bonus contract a few years ago. Carson Wentz had a $30 million option bonus in his contract. They exercised it, and then they ended up cutting, right? They traded him, I think. Yeah, they traded him. But because of the option bonus proration and all that money accelerated forward in the camp, not money, but from a cap standpoint, they had at the time the largest dead money hit in NFL history at $33.8 million. That's the downside of doing the structure. The Jaguars did 4 option bonuses in Trevor Lawrence's contract. So they better be right that he's the guy. If he's not the guy, you're gonna have a hard time getting out of that contract without any cap pain.
So Joel, let me cut you off here because you bring up a point that's kind of crazy. Jackson, you said that the option bonuses make it essentially hard, like you're gambling on this guy. You think that this guy is going to give you an opportunity to have some room fiscally with the way that they perform and staying healthy and all that stuff. 4 option bonuses for Trevor Lawrence. That's like all in. That's like all in at the casino.
Yes, because let's say he's not the guy they think he is. You got signing bonus proration, then you got first option bonus proration, and you keep going. You're layering proration upon proration upon proration, and then the future years would accelerate into the current year or use a post-1 designation, take the hit over 2 years. So they're almost stuck with them. At some point, it may get at a point where they could actually get out of the contract. But from his standpoint, it makes it more secure even when the guarantees are starting to run out. There is a situation where this could come into play for a player that a team never contemplated that they would be parting ways with him. And that's Myles Garrett. That contract has multiple option bonuses when they started restructuring it. They didn't just do simple cap restructures. They started putting option bonuses in, picking up voiding dummy years, presumably because they were going to do an extension and convert those dummy years into real years. He wants out. His cap number is basically 17.8. If they were to trade him before the 3rd day of the league year on March 14th, they'd have $36.2 million of dead money because everything would accelerate forward. So that would increase their cap hit by like $19 million. There's a $5 million option bonus due the 3rd day of the league year. So if they trade him after that, tack on $5 more million to the dead money. So you're not going to see Myles Garrett traded anytime soon. 1, they don't want to, and 2, from a cap standpoint, they just can't do it.
So what I'm kind of hearing is the more option bonuses and the more bonuses just in general, the more you convert salary into bonus, basically the more security that is for the player. Basically makes it closer to a guaranteed contract. Yeah, they can maybe cut you at some point, but most teams aren't, just because when you rack up that much dead cap towards the end of deals, it's kind of like what the Saints have right now with like Cam Jordan, right? where he's
Well,
just
it's kind of what they have with Derek Carr.
and yet
You basically have to restructure him again because they kicked the can down the road of every contract known to man on that team. So I expect they're going to create basically $31 million in cap space by delaying the inevitable next year, just because it wasn't going to work to try to cut him this year the way their cap is set up. Some people like to say that the salary cap doesn't exist, but the Saints, with their aging roster and restructuring all these contracts, if the cap didn't exist, then they could just cut all these guys without impunity. But there are major cap consequences, so they're in a position where they probably just have to kick the can down the road again.
And that's the team that Mike has always referenced. And the phrase kicking the can down the road, I've heard it ad nauseum, Joel. And I'm like, what the hell is going on in New Orleans? And it makes me think, there's 32 teams in the National Football League, and this is apparently all the best and brightest minds in football and business. How are there situations like there are in New Orleans, yet on the other side of things, there's situations in other buildings where they have it just so figured out? So which teams are in the best cap/decision maker situations where the people in the building have been doing it a really bright way for a long time, and which teams maybe have been hitting their head on the door, stubbing their toe on the bed frame for years and eternity now?
Well, I'm going to put the Saints in the group where they should probably revisit what they're doing. When you do what they've done, you think you're in a window to win. They keep missing the playoffs, so they're obviously not there. So I would blow it up and just take the cap pain like the Raiders did when Reggie McKenzie first got there and cleaned up their cap. It took 2 years to do it. But you get a false sense of security that we can win, and this is how you get to where you are. I love what Philadelphia is doing. Howie Roseman's mentor was Joe Banner. Joe Banner is the smartest guy I ever dealt with when I was an agent. Joe Banner's the guy who really pioneered that you need to be proactive with your core players. He's the one who would do rookie contracts earlier than anyone else because you can get a guy cheaper the earlier you do him. And you also, if you structure it right, have more cap flexibility. Howie's taken it to an extreme with the option bonus structure that he's using, but you have to make sure that you're hitting on the right guys. If you start doing that for the wrong guys, then Howie's going to be in a situation like they are in New Orleans. But Howie seems to be one step ahead of a lot of people just because Zach Bond. How do you find that? He was sitting in New Orleans, and they didn't know what to do with him. And he's first team All-Pro at a position he never played. He goes out and does something unconventional, pays Saquon Barkley when people aren't paying running backs. And that's the reason they win the Super Bowl. Without Saquon Barkley, they're not winning a Super Bowl. So that's the guy I put number one. I like what San Francisco does for the most part. One thing I don't like is they seem to try to win the deal in some situations where the deal is going to end up a certain place. So why are you forcing a guy to hold out to get there? And I'm thinking of Nick Bosa in particular, that coming off an NFL Defensive Player of the Year season, you knew Nick Bosa was going to be the highest paid non-quarterback. You should have done that so he gets in camp on time, because he didn't have the year that he had the previous year because he didn't show up until the start of the regular season. So I pretty much like what they do. I used to like what New England did, not from an agent standpoint, but from a team standpoint, because their philosophy was it's better to get rid of a player a year too early as opposed to a year too late. And somehow they got Tom Brady to take hometown discounts. That was after he at one time was highest paid player in the league in 2010. But once you get your top player to take a hometown discount, you can use that negotiation against everyone else. Hey, Tom didn't get less, didn't take every last dollar. He's trying to help us win more Super Bowls. And you can try to guilt other players and agents into doing the same thing.